All right, folks. This is Steve with Real Progressives. Tonight is just going to be a night with you and I, and we're going to talk about some logical fallacies that are just absolutely holding us back from anything worthwhile right now. And I want to tell you, this is coming with no joy in heart, but it's going to be done with a little bit of fun, a little bit of pizzazz if I can, because it's pretty depressing, okay? It really is. I've been in a few just Democrat-only rooms, not the standard, progressive rooms, but the Democrat-only rooms where these folks vote blue no matter who. It's kind of their MO. It's kind of what they do, okay? And I go in there and I just drop some information. I drop just a little bit of information, not too much. I know that they only have about this much capacity to think beyond what the party says. But I drop just enough information. And the feedback is always, well, I want to see what Biden has to say. Like they're holding out. Like they believe the establishment is good. They believe, period. And so the reason why I bring this up is somebody sent me an inbox the other day and said, Steve, I'd like you to do a show on getting money out of politics. Let's talk about getting money out of politics, because you talked the other day about how a constitutional convention was a bad idea. And you talked a little bit about how, the right wing is praying the left is dumb enough to try and do it. I'm like, yep, all true. And he says, so how do we get money out of politics? How do we get the corruption out of this? And I thought to myself, so you're making some bold assumptions. You're assuming that money in politics, which is what frequently buys votes, because people just think that these folks are just the chosen ones, and they line up behind them and they suck up whatever it is that they have to say. And they don't really care about the policy implications or anything like that. But then there's also the fact that the politician, when it comes time to vote, always has an excuse for why they voted against mankind. And the sad part is that these Democrats, these standard bearer establishment Democrats, carry the water for every single lie that is told by that politician, because they literally cannot think about policy space. They don't care about it. And I kept thinking, if we get money out of politics, what's that going to do? I mean, really, what is it that... I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying, what is it that we expect to get out of getting money out of politics? Is it the advertising dollars that brainwash the dumb masses? I don't think that's really the deal. Joe Biden hasn't put out hardly any ads, to my knowledge, and the news that I've seen, and not just on alternative media. The news I see about Joe Biden, his homeboy's got his schnoz up in every lady's hair, giving them a good old back rub, whispering in their ear, telling them what a great future they have if they just follow him for a little while into the back bedroom. I mean, wherever he's taking them. But these folks, they're not listening. And so I think, what is it exactly about money in politics that is going to change? We take all the money out of politics, every penny of it. Do you think these people are going to suddenly start listening to deep policy discussions? Do you think they're going to suddenly say, let me hear what they have to say? No. I mean, I have absolutely zero belief that the regular vote blue sycophant has any intention whatsoever of learning anything about anything. They are Borg, for real. So I keep coming back. What about money and politics? See, if you have a brain, and I'm being serious here, I'm not being a smartass. If you have a brain, and you know that it's in your best interest to be able to make sure your family has health care, you don't sit there and worry about whether the government paid for your health care to be free or not. You're thankful for that. You're not worried about markets. Oh, what'll happen to the markets if we give free health care? You're not worried about that either. You're not. You're worried about getting your kid health care. You're worried about getting your mammogram. You're worried about getting your pap smear, your, whatever, right? You're worried about making sure you survive. So what is it about getting money out of politics that is going to radically change the outcomes? I think it's too easy to say getting the money out of politics. You could sit there and you can have all this money poured in, tons and tons and tons and tons of money from the oil companies. Now, what did they do with that money? It's going into their campaign. What do they do with it? Well, sure, they can pay people off and sure they can do different things. But what do you think is going to happen to the average voter? Do you think the average voter gets smarter or dumber based on the amount of money that a candidate gets poured into their account? I really wish I could say that it's these corporate ads that are making people suddenly just throw away common sense and reason and just staying lockstep with whoever Vote Blue is. But it really comes down to voting, doesn't it? That's really what it comes down to. It comes down to who they fear most. It comes down to whether they think the people are going to hold them accountable or whether they're going to lose all their donations from their corporate sponsors. But what do they do with those donations? Seriously. What does a campaign do with millions and millions of dollars? Why does a campaign person need millions and millions of dollars? I mean, do they travel around the state? Travel around the country? Buy up ads? Buy newspaper ads? Buy television spots? What do they do with the money? What exactly is it that they do with the money? I mean, there's trails of what happens once it's received. They may use dark money to hide who the source was. But there's ways of tracking where that money goes. So what exactly is it that they do with the money that they receive from all this fat that's coming in through this money and politics stuff? Folks, I'm here to tell you, I don't believe for a minute that things are going to change until the American people wake up. I don't think that anything's going to change. I mean, every politician in the world could be on the take. But as long as people go along to get along and just suckle at the teat of the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, it's just going to be the same thing. And this is not... Let me clarify. This is not me saying green enter or dem exit or anything like that. I'm just making a statement of fact. It's just an observation. If we don't change how we view our country and change how we view politics and change how we view what we expect from our politicians, it doesn't matter how much money is floating around out there. Because when we're united, people tend to take us seriously. And when we're not, they tend to laugh at us and ignore us. So money all of a sudden matters. But I'm still telling you right now, money is not making Democrats dumb. Money is not making Democrats ignore policy space. It's just not. So I want you all to take some time to really think about what it is you're trying to get out of getting money out of politics. I'm all for it. My beliefs are that I want to make sure that there's absolutely no payola for voting. I'm more worried about the voting than I am worried about the brainwashed masses. Because the brainwashed masses are brainwashed masses whether they've ever watched Rachel Maddow or any of these other mainstream programs. Excuse me. I oftentimes think to myself, when the Russian narrative came out, you could literally do a montage of every single media outlet going, the Russia propaganda, 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 right? Boom, 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 boom. Now, if that was paid for, if you will, by campaign contributions, that's a different story. But how that money got to those media outlets to make it so that they were all in unison saying the exact same thing, somehow or another there was a talking paper that made it through the halls of these media outlets, and they repeated it. I remember Robert Reich out there screaming about Russia. I remember every single one of these old Clintonistas screaming about Russia. Is that where the money in politics is going? Is it funding these think tanks like the Clinton Foundation and, David Brock and Correct the Record and all those other creepy people? Is that what it's doing? I mean, think about what I'm saying. What is it's, I'm trying to make a delineation here. It's not that money in politics shouldn't go. It absolutely should. What I'm asking you, though, is what is it that you're trying to stop? Are you trying to make voters vote differently than they vote today so that they're not voting for these moron neoliberals? Or are you trying to make it so that your Congress critters, when they're elected, they don't have the obligation to serve the money donors that spend it on them, right? I would venture to say that we have two major problems there. And I don't believe they're solved the same way. But they appear to be the same problem, but they're not. When you're a voter, there's something else going on there that creates this bizarre mental illness, if you will, called vote blue sycophant, that causes them to turn off the synapses in their brain and just vote blue no matter who. There's some sort of chemical reaction in there that does this. It's not money in politics. And I don't know whether it's a team sport effect. I don't know whether it's feeling like they belong to something. I don't know whether it's something that was passed down by Grammy and Grandpa and Mom and Dad, and so therefore the union or whatever. I have no idea. I really don't. I don't want to presume to tell you where people's motives come from being Borg-like in their allegiance here to vote blue. But I do understand that advertising, they spend millions, if not billions, $1 trillion on advertising for political campaigns, for political, policy space, you name it. And when you think about this, the very same people that vote for these parasites do not question them when they're in office. They do not say anything different. They're already in office. So the money's already been spent in whatever fashion. So why is it that they continue to do this? Why do they do this in spite of everything? I mean, seriously. I mean, you could say it's like some sort of a Stockholm syndrome. You could say it's any number of things. But seriously, what is it when they vote for these people? Do they turn off politics now that their guy's elected? What is it that makes them stop paying attention to what's going on? Or only pay attention when it's the Republicans that do something naughty? What is it about the very things that you say you care about, that we all talk about? What is it that makes them care less about that after the candidate is in office? The money's still in politics. They're still getting campaign donations. They're still getting tons of support to do whatever it is that they're going to do. So what is it that prevents them, once that candidate is elected, from now criticizing the lack of policy space? I mean, it's like you get this window of time. Now, granted, we're in perpetual elections. Every day seems like a new election. So, it's kind of hard to never be in campaign mode because we're always in campaign mode. So there's always money flowing, and the longer these campaign cycles go, the more money is turned into these campaigns, and the more money's at stake, and the more, bullshit that goes on. But voters seem to be locked into this cult of vote blue. And I say this with complete and utter disrespect in my heart, because I find it to be repulsive and repugnant. But I say this as an olive branch to some extent in light of that. What the fuck is wrong with those people, for real? How in the world can we crack through that? I'm telling you, taking the money out of politics isn't changing it. Do we have to buy the media outlets? Because they're not listening to alternative media. Hell, anybody that criticizes the Democratic Party, they instantly say we're far left lefties crazier than fuck. They don't actually listen to what we have to say. They just cast us in some box as cuckoo socialists. So they don't even listen. It's like as soon as you object, they've already shut you down. There's no money in that. Where's the money in that? There's no money in that politics. That's just your basic vote blue sycophant and their tactic for shutting down anything. I'm dead serious. They read a headline, they feel like they know everything they need to know, and then they walk away, and it's over, it's done. Folks, this is, to me, the more important of all these things, is how do you unite a people when you've got a hardy band of, very, very small hardy band of people that pay attention to alternative media, that pay attention to policy, that actually dig into the facts and care about what's going on, only to be lumped in as crazy people. Only in America could the people that do the hard work and learn the shit be considered the crazy ones. While the lazy do-nothings that just sit there and vote blue are treated like the normal people. How the hell did that happen? Now, I could see that being money in politics, money in advertising, creating the new norm. The norm is that as long as you go along with vote blue and you yell at the right people, that suddenly you're okay and I'm okay and you're okay and so forth. But it really doesn't have anything to do with saving our environment or giving us health care. It doesn't have anything to do with taking student debt away or anything like that. It always comes back to, is it brunch yet? These folks they're still pissed that they didn't get to have croissant for Hillary's victory party. I mean, it's not money in politics, folks. It's apathy. It's straight up apathy. It's lazy. It's intellectual dishonesty. It's not just money in politics. Getting money out of politics would be a wonderful, wonderful thing. It really would. But getting rid of American apathy? Well, that'd about just be divine, wouldn't it? But see, it's always by design, right? So there's this little thing out there called NAIRU, N-A-I-R-U. And what NAIRU is basically a way of assessing unemployment. It's a rate that they target to keep so many people unemployed, to keep inflation at a certain rate. And so what they do is they do this on purpose. And NAIRU is the law of the land. And as long as you're one of the people on the other side of the NAIRU coin that is employed and getting to enjoy the baseball games, and the corporation takes you out to a special place in the ballpark, get you some chicken and some fries and a couple sodas and calls you a great employee, you're happy as a pig in mud. But the folks on the other side of that coin that are forced unemployed to keep inflation low, they're the crazy ones. They're the ne'er-do-goods. They're the ones that are lumped in and thrown out. So obviously, what they've done is they've kept enough people sort of comfortable. And as long as they can look over and see him suffering, they feel good about their station in life. Because you know what? It could always be worse. Look over at him. How'd you like to be that guy? You better be grateful for what you got. And so they're just tickled pink. They don't want to mess with anything. They mess with something, it might impact their little nest egg. It might impact their comfortability. And they don't want to do that because they're on the other side of the Nauru coin. So we get money out of politics and we get these great Congress critters and whatnot but just imagine how many people are sound asleep. That not just sound asleep, but don't care. Being asleep would be fine. Everybody gets tired. Go take a nap. But when you just straight up don't care, now what? Folks, we've got to be able to prevail upon those people that there's an alternative. And you could sit there and talk to them, and they're watching TV. They're picking their fingernails or reading a book. They're doing anything but paying attention to what you're talking about because they've already moved on, because it violates the very comfort zone that they've set for themselves. Again, having absolutely nothing to do with getting money out of politics. If we had those people aligned with us, actually having good faith discussions about the problems that are facing America and the world, how hard would it be for these politicians, even on the take, even getting big time donations, how hard would it be if all those sleeping lemmings were suddenly, and I'm not talking about revolutionary even, forget being revolutionary. What if you're just simply an active citizen, a participant in your democracy? Not just showing up at some meeting and cheering on your favorite team, but I'm talking about showing up and being heard and really voicing your concerns and standing against these things that are going wrong. I'm telling you right now, that would drown out any amount of money in politics, because if it didn't, those politicians know goddamn well that there's plenty of people there with pitchforks and torches in hand ready to devour them. I'm telling you, I think, even with money in politics, that it's the citizens that have to own their power. That it's the citizens who have to wake up and seize the day. So for me, as I think about going into not only the 2020 election, but just in general, what would you do? Because I'm very frustrated that there's not more emphasis on a Green New Deal. I'm very frustrated that there's not more discussions about policy and how to win the policy space. Why is that? Because folks are so conditioned that we're going to have a screwed up election that they can't even consider the possibility of something better. So not only do we have the sleeping vote blues out there who will go along with whatever shit comes down the pipe, but then we've got an activist community over here that can't focus on policy space either, because all they can think of is goddamn Dem exit, burn it down, whatever, because they're still pissed at the 2015 election. And rightfully so. So how do we fix that? How do we actually fix that? Because in order to make the kind of changes that we need to make, the people have to be awake to do it. It doesn't make a hill of beans difference if politicians are on the take, if most of the population doesn't give a fuck. That's how democracy works. It's terrible, but it's true. When the vast majority of voting Americans do not give two fucks about either a Green New Deal, the climate, your health care, anything, they're comfortable, they're happy, they're going to vote for whoever the Democrats throw up there, and that's that. That's good enough for them. Vote blue no matter who bullshit. It doesn't make a bit of difference how much money's flowing into politics. You can complain till the cows come home. You can. But you're not going to get any of the policies that you need taken care of at the local level in Flint, in Puerto Rico, anywhere. You're not getting any of it without waking the people up. See, this is where civic duty kicks in, folks. And we're always... Have you ever met that person that's always blaming someone else for the problems of their own making, right? They're always looking for someone else to blame. And you don't have to be Donald Trump or a racist or something like that to do this. Regular, normal people are always looking for a scapegoat too. Because it sucks to have to admit, damn, I fucked up. And so as we look, most people aren't going to take the time to say I fucked up and I'm not getting it done and I'm not, people don't want to hear that. They want to hear that it's somebody else. It's the politician that's doing this to us. Because they don't take into consideration the 90% of other Democrats and independents and Republicans that truly do not give a fuck. They think that everybody's like them that cares. They think that all the people around here care. They didn't go out to their local meetings. They didn't go to Walmart and picket. They didn't go to some protest and raise a sign that nobody understood and talk to people about the things that matter to them. They went to the protest to take selfies and get a new t-shirt. They didn't go there with the intent of changing it. This is why getting money out of politics, while it's a very noble cause, and I agree with it 100%, I ask, what's the real problem you're trying to solve? I keep coming back to, oh, hell no. It ain't going to work like that. The only way to defeat election fraud is to have so many people show up that it goes beyond the margin of error. And that way we can defeat election fraud. We won't get that with the current crop, the way it's going. The current crop of voting citizens, with or without shitty voting laws and registrations and all that stuff. Because the fact is that most Americans are apathetic. Now, I'm not judging why they're apathetic. There's plenty of reasons why they're apathetic. There's plenty to be apathetic about. It's real easy to get down and not get back up. It's easy to look at this thing and say it's impossible and check out. But that's by design, folks. They want you to check out because that leaves them in power. And then what happens is the truth is that you gave up the ghost before the fight even began. And so the bad guys win. And you say, see, we got to get money out of politics. But the reality is if you showed up and put your jersey on And not just you, that's the thing. But you reached out and talked to 2 friends. And they reached out and talked to 2 friends. And so on. We might be able to get enough people to start paying attention. But I don't know how to break that party loyalty thing. I don't know how to break that hold that blue thing has on people. I mean, Joe Biden is the best Republican running right now. Let's give old Jolton Joe credit for that. Joe Biden is definitely a Republican. And I say that without a drip of animus against the Republican Party in this sense. I'm saying it clearly. He represents the Republican ideal. Free markets, privatization of Social Security, patriarchy, male privilege, white male privilege. He represents everything the Republican old guard stands for. That all shucks kind of attitude. I don't expect many people to wake up. I really don't. I just don't expect it. Because I don't think enough people are actively awake even in the progressive movement. Yeah, I see so many people that wake up and say, man, I'm ready for a revolution. But do you know what a revolution involves? Anybody watch Game of Thrones here recently? Spoiler alert, a lot of people die. You know? I mean, seriously, I used to run around saying that my biggest gift would be that I'd be the ice dragon. You know, flapping my wings and blowing that blue flame at people. And just, maybe that'll wake them up. Well, the ice dragon, sorry folks, is gone now. Zombie dragon bit the bullet. So I got to find a new avatar to keep relating to, because there went my superpower. I'm done. But for real, if you go to a Democratic page, they're still talking about fucking Macedonians. Does Macedonia even exist anymore? When's the last time we fought the Macedonians? I mean, they're talking about, oh, the Macedonian trolls are doing stuff. And I'm like, no, folks, that was Casey Champagne or whatever that sat there and put kiddie porn on Bernie's sites. Stop trying to make it out to be that, you know, this is, what the fuck? It's stupid. Shut up. Just shut up. And you realize that how do you wake somebody that's like that? How can you even be buddies and homies with them? Hang out. Because that's what it's going to take. See, I watch some of our good friends in the Green Party. And they're screaming, we're eco-socialists. We're not progressives. We're eco-socialists. And while that may be a great thing, they could have called themselves late to dinner and it wouldn't have mattered. That's the problem. There's only a small group of people that care about these labels and care about these friggin' policy space. I mean, they're just screaming. They're like that guy on the corner with the John 3:16 thing and the bad, you know, tie-dye shirt and a beard that's got flies and gnats coming out of it. He's holding up John 3:16. I mean, that's what it's like. These people are tuning you out like you are a crackpot sitting there on the corner. They're not saying, oh, what does that sign say? They're not. And I don't think getting money out of politics is going to change that. And our pressure, the pressure of the people, is the only pressure these politicians understand other than loss of money. But if the people rise up, even Richard Nixon passed the EPA into law. I think we have to face facts. That while getting money out of politics would be a really grand thing, in my opinion, it's just yet one more excuse why we're not active. It's just one more excuse why we're not taking policy seriously, while we're not dialed in to the needs of the country and dialed into the needs of the many. It's not hard to find this stuff out. It's not hard to drive down the streets in Washington, D.C. and see the homeless people in the corner with newspapers over them. It doesn't take money in politics to show you that the poor are not being taken care of. It doesn't take money in politics to figure out. I had a conversation with a Republican family member the other day. And I was very sad because they said, I hope everything works out for everyone, but I want to keep my health care, so I don't want Medicare for all. I don't want anybody else to, I'm okay with whatever. I just don't want to lose my health care. It's a fear-based thing. I get it. That's typical conservative logic. But in reality, how do you expect to be able to crack the seal and be able to make the kind of change that you want to make, that we want to make, that we need, when the people have been bought into this scarcity so much that they don't care who else is hurting as long as they get theirs? Folks, this is consistent across the board. Across the board. The people themselves are the ones that own the keys to the kingdom. And the people don't care. You can spin it a million ways to Sunday. You can come up with 1,000 different contortions to try and make this out to be something more than it is. But the reality is that until we get the people caring, until we somehow or another find a way to break past this Ayn Rand, makers and takers, I got mine, fuck you mindset, it won't matter how much money is going into the pockets of these politicians. I'm telling you right now. Numbers don't lie. The people themselves are not dialed in. And so, until the people demand it and stand on it, there's nothing going to change. Money in politics be damned. I'm serious. Think about what I'm saying. If you disagree with me, hey man, I'm all about listening. But when you think about revolution, a lot of people die. And if you don't have numbers, if you don't have sufficient buy-in, you don't have a revolution. And you're not going to have a revolution as long as the people don't care. And the thing is, if the people did care, you wouldn't need a revolution. Do you see what I'm saying? Think about what I'm saying. The revolution that some want is not shared by almost 90% of the population. More than that. Many of the people that say they want revolution haven't the stomach for revolution. They wouldn't be able to handle the bloodletting. They wouldn't be able to handle the carnage that comes with a real revolution. They wouldn't. Hell, they can't even seem to find it within them to wake up their fellow citizens. So how in the world, what are they just going to do? Run around and smash windows at local storefronts and call it a revolution? You know, there's an old Tom Cruise movie. I can't remember the name of it. I probably should wait on this analogy, but it's a good one. Tom Cruise played some guy that was a officer in the Nazi party, and it's a damn good movie. Anybody know what I'm talking about? I'm looking down here for you guys. Put it in the comments. The Tom Cruise movie where he played an officer in Nazi Germany, and they decided they were going to overthrow Hitler. In any event, they all believed, they all were doing this thing, but what it turned out to be was just, it failed. It was a failed attempt, and everybody was killed. Everybody. They were all shot, lined up, shot. And may have felt like a great victory in the moment, but the truth is that the people themselves were cowards. The good Germans, they weren't willing to, in any way, shape, or form, fight back. They were tucked back in their houses. They were ignoring. They were plugging their ears, going la, la, la. While right over on the other side, there was Auschwitz. Valkyrie. Thank you, Ginger. Bingo. It takes conviction. It takes hand to hand, mouth to mouth, ear to ear, heart to heart conversations to wake people up and get them engaged. Door knocking for a candidate is great, but why not do more in your community to wake people up, to make them see things for what it is? I'm telling you, money in politics is bad, but it is not the be-all, end-all. If, again, and I'll end on this note, if the people themselves will not rise up against this, and they will not unite against this, and they will not stand against the oppression, all of our progressive sensibilities be damned. We're outnumbered in this democracy. And shouting, I'm an eco-socialist, I'm not a progressive, and I don't participate, blah, 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 doesn't do anything. It's not even cool. It's kind of stupid, right? The people that we need are not the people you think. The people we need are people that are going, oh, what was that you said? I'm reading the sports section. And until we wake them up, it's going to be very, very difficult to convince me that getting money out of politics is going to suddenly make them more engaged in the process. Because there's so much suffering right now that if that didn't get their attention, it's certainly not going to come by getting money out of politics. Think about that. Tell me if I'm right. Tell me if I'm wrong in the comments. I'm more than willing to listen. And if I learn something new, I can be changed. I'm not stuck. But I feel pretty confident in my assessment here, unfortunately. I hate when I feel confident in my assessment when it doesn't lead down a pathway to victory. But this isn't about the centrist Democrats. This isn't about the games they play in the election booths. This isn't about any of that. It's about the people themselves. Just taking easy street and ignoring the pain and suffering and just doing whatever. It's okay. I get some people are living so hand to mouth that it's impossible to fight back. But it's not them I'm talking about. It's the people that are comfortable. They have no incentive to change, have no desire to change, have no desire to engage. They've got more important or fun things to do with their time than political discourse. Think about that. I'm Steve Grumbine with Real Progressives. Have a good night, everybody. I'm out.